So today I want to explore a few techniques inspired by the Path Eurorack module that allows us to send one source to multiple destinations while morphing between the outputs. As always, I added also the ideas from this video to the PDF of tips and tricks I keep on updating. It's available on my Patreon together with the project files from this video and from many other videos. So not long ago I made a video about the Trace Eurorack module, and Path is the same idea but the other way around, so routing one signal to multiple destinations. In the grid we can do this with the split module, right? Also here we can set it to have 4 outputs in this case. And if we leave it in linear mode, it will crossfade between the outputs and will continuously route the input to multiple destinations. So here I have a voice going with a sequence, a swarm and sine going through a filter. Right, it will sound like this. Right, so now instead of going directly to the output, I will send this first of all to split, and then I have here 4 effects. So I have here the mod delay, just as a simple delay, then a flanger, then a modulated delay, so it's a bit glitchy, and then the pitch shifter. This is all going here to a mixer, right? So I'm mixing the 4 versions, and this will go then to the output. And now we can use all sorts of signals to crossfade or to scan through the outputs. For now, I will just use the value module so we can see what's going on. Right, so if I play this, now we get the delay. I can crossfade or scan to the flanger. And then the modulated delay. And then the pitch shifter. Right, and like this scan through the outputs. And again, we can use all sorts of signals, like for example a phase signal. So if we use something like the step axis, I can set it to have 4 steps because again we have 4 outputs. Maybe set it to be 1 bar long and then send this here to split. Right, so we get a bit more movement, a bit more of an interesting sound. I have here also a bass drone with the same technique. Right, in this case I have 3 oscillators, a wavetable, phase 1 and sub, going again through a filter, and then after this I'm sending it to split. In this case I'm using smooth random voltage to scan through the outputs, and then again I have 4 different versions, once the original sound, once through a chorus, once through a series of effects here, quantizer, filter, bandpass filter, flanger and another delay, and once the frequency shifter, right, and again randomly scanning through these outputs. Right, to add movement, to add more variation to the sound. I have here a few more voices, a kick of course, some percussions, and a hi-hat. We can do the same also with the modulation source. So here I have a drone with the sine oscillator and the triangle oscillator. And instead of using audio in this case, I'm using curves. So a modulation source, this will go to split. And you can see I have here 4 modulator out modules. So I can map each output to a different parameter. So for example, I can have here one modulating hit, and another one the folding of the sine wave, another one howl, and another one the folding of the triangle wave, right? And then again scan through the outputs of split here, and I will use an LFO for this, right? This will just go to the scan input here. Right, and now again I'm routing curves, I'm routing the modulation source in this case to multiple destinations while cross-fading between the outputs. I have here also noise with the same idea. In this case, I have a noise source going to 4 different processing filters, flanger, frequency shifter. Right, and again, I'm mixing the result, and I'm using here another curves as my modulation source, crossfading between the outputs to modulate the levels here. You can see this here on the mixer to modulate the levels on the mixer, so each processing gets its own level. Right, and I'm using here another curves, by the way, to crossfade or to scan through the output, so you can use really any signal for this. I have here more voices, kick, a sort of a melody line, and hi-hats. This can get also quite interesting with pitch sequences. So I have here 3 oscillators, the sine, the pulse, and the swarm. They have a common trigger sequence. Right, and I have here also a pitch sequence. Right, this one here that I'm sending again to the split module. Right, and you can see I have 3 outputs in this case, one for each oscillator. And each output has its own quantizer, so we have also for each output different notes. Right, and again, because we are crossfading between the outputs, we are not switching between them, we are crossfading between them. The levels will change a bit, and you can see this quite clearly on the quantizers. We get these interesting pitch glitches. Right, so if I send this to the voices, right, each voice will be sequenced at different times. Right, and we get those notes between the notes, which can also be quite interesting. Again, it adds a bit of a texture to the sound. I have here, of course, more voices, a bass, a kick, and hi-hat. You can also try this with a trigger sequencer, and again, because we are cross-fading between the outputs, we are not switching between them, we get glitches in the sequence and add again a bit more movement, a bit more texture to everything. So I have here 4 sine oscillators, each of them is tuned to a different note. Right, and I have here already a trigger sequencer. Right, this one here, for now it's going just to the first output. Right, and you can see that I'm sending it also through the amplify module. We'll see also soon enough why. But again, with the split module, I'm routing this to the envelopes of each oscillator. So now I can scan through the outputs. Again, I will use curves. Right now, already we get some glitches. But now if we even amplify the trigger signal, it will cause multiple envelopes to play together according to the crossfading, right? When the crossfading is somewhere in the middle, both envelopes will play at the same time. So all we have to do is just amplify the signal a bit. Right, and you can see on the envelopes that sometimes we get 2 voices playing together, and we get even more of these glitches. So again, it's just adding texture to everything. It makes everything not sit completely tight on the grid, which can be interesting. I have here hi-hats with the same idea, but in this case just 3 outputs. Again, amplifying the triggers. And you can hear the glitches, you can hear this interesting rhythm. Again, it's not sitting directly tight on the grid. I have here more drums and a bass. And of course, it's always fun experimenting with audio rate modulation. So here I have the pulse oscillator already going through split, and I have 4 different processing here. It will sound like this. Right, chorus, frequency shifter, phaser, and filters. Just a drone. And now instead of using a slower signal modulation or phase, I'm going to use another sine oscillator to crossfade right between the outputs. For now it's tuned quite low, but again we can do this at audio rates. Right, and we get much more interesting textures. Right, you can even tune it up a perfect fifth, so 7 semitones. Change the shape. To get something even more gritty. Right, so again, with audio rates, you can also get really interesting textures and sounds. And that was it. I hope you will go and explore some of these ideas. I'm going to add some more voices to this. Thank you again for watching. Cheers.